for us. I want to present it to some folks who are very familiar with California's situation. Tom Campbell going to join us for one. He's a former California State Budget Director, currently economics and law professor at Chapman University. Tom Campbell, nice to see you. We've got Tom and Tom for this conversation, by the way. Tom McClintock is the California Congressman, or one of the California Congressmen, and I would argue, Tom, one of the most famous tax cut crusaders in the state. I want to begin this conversation with the two of you on the spending side, and then I'll come back for the tax collection side. But I want to start with how Governor Schwarzenegger has spent California's money, and the San Jose Mercury News argument that there's an additional $10 billion that is being and continues to be spent above and beyond the rate of inflation, above and beyond the rate of population growth in that state, and that $4.1 billion of that, as you can see here again, is prisons tied to California's three strikes law. That incarceration in that state is just an incredibly expensive undertaking. The second one, health care, which is a conversation we all know and love, fun to give away, no one wants to talk about who's going to pay, and then political expediency with the vehicle license refund, $2 billion, $200 to everybody in California, but they have to replace that revenue, and that's breaking the state. Tom Campbell, again, you have the best budget familiarity. Is the San Jose Mercury News of the excess spend in California because of incarceration costs, because of health care costs, and because of politically expedient decisions like giving drivers refunds on their licensing fees, is that a fair characterization as to why on the spending side California has the problems that it does?
It's not a complete explanation. If you go back 10 years to the last budget of the previous governor, before we had Davis or Schwarzenegger, and just brought those numbers forward for inflation and population, we would actually be $2 billion in surplus today. So yes, there are high degrees of spending in California. We've had a faster rate of growth of increase in medical care than in any other category, and our cost of prisons is $47,000 per prisoner, more than twice the national average. So those are true. But it's across the board, Dylan. It's not just those areas. And if we had simply applied a rule that you don't increase spending from one year to the next more than population and inflation, we would be in surplus, not in deficit today.
I feel like, Tom McClintock, and I'll get you in here, that we're in a situation, and I feel like California is sort of a microcosm of this country, in that you have this political culture which is based on I'll keep my job by obviously doing what I need to do to stay here, and a culture, meaning America, that was once not accepting of borrowing from future generations to create politically expedient decisions now. Suddenly that's how we do business. And as soon as I can take my children's money and my children's children's money and my children's 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 money and give it back to any special interest, whether it's to bail out Citigroup or to give away health care to win votes with a driver's license or a licensing fee refund, it works for the politicians, but it doesn't seem to work for anybody else in America, certainly for any long period of time.
Well, I think the public knows you can't spend your way rich, you cannot borrow your way out of debt, and you cannot tax your way to prosperity. And you need look no farther than California for Exhibit A and what happens when you try. I agree with everything you said except for the reduction in the California vehicle license tax, which was one of the highest in the nation. That reduction actually improved the state's revenues because it improved economic activity. They've just now doubled the vehicle license tax, along with a lot of other taxes. Sales taxes went up 13% by a penny on the dollar, another 0.25% increase.
No, I know, and I'm going to come. So let's. You want to talk taxes? I mean, listen, I was talking spending, but I'll flip it to the tax conversation. And here's what blows my mind about California. And maybe again I'm naive, but California appears, and I don't want to use this graphic just because it's got some typos in the lines and all this. But if you look at how they collect their money. They collect their money, meaning California, largely, as you point out, through income tax, highest there is. You tax people for making money. Doesn't make sense to me, but we'll come back to that another day. And then sales tax at a time when they've got this Proposition 13 where they have no property tax base. So they have no consistent tax base, and they have a huge variable tax base based on economic activity. And as a result, someone like Warren Buffett, who came out a few years ago and made this point, pays like $2,000 or $3,000, $2,500 a year in taxes on a multi-million-dollar home in Laguna, and he's paying $15,000 a year in taxes in Omaha, Nebraska, which is where he keeps his primary residence. So how is it that you can administrate a state, Tom Campbell, Forget the spending and the political expediency and all the rest of it, where your revenue stream is tied to economic activity. You're taxing people for the income that they generate in a state that's known for its entrepreneurialism, and you want people doing this, and yet you tax them for it, and yet you refuse to create a fixed revenue stream for the state by allowing the Warren Buffetts of the world to pay $2,000 a year on multi-million-dollar homes in Laguna. What's the rationale there, Tom Campbell?
The rationale is simply because we never created what we should have created a long time ago, which is a rainy day fund. You can have variable sources of revenue like the personal income tax. 50% of our revenue comes from the personal income tax or the sales tax, and accumulate in good years and then draw down in the
But the thing is, the state doesn't do that. Right, so the state doesn't save. Exactly so if you're going to go with a boom-bust cycle, a la Gold Rush, California's history, all the rest of it, and not save the money, it's madness, right? So you either have to create raise your fixed revenue or save money, right?
Absolutely. You need the fund. But I do want to just make one slight disagreement. I don't think the problem is Prop 13. I don't think the problem is that we put a cap on the percentage of real estate in the state of California. Given the high cost of real estate, we're actually number 10. The median amount of property tax paid by all Californians puts us number 10 in the nation. So and if you got rid of Prop 13, which is occasionally what you hear Warren Buffett apparently was suggesting, you run the risk that no commercial entity, no manufacturing entity is going to sink foundations or pour concrete in the state of California, because they know the moment they do, they're at risk. They'll be reassessed. Now that you're captured here, we'll tax you even more. No, the wise thing is to create a reserve fund. We should have done that in 2005.
Sure.
I drafted the proposition that went to the legislature in that year. It was eventually turned down by the people in an initiative, but that's what we needed.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is politicians and people, everybody loves to spend money. And when you have lots of it, people spend it. And I don't know how you manage for that. Anyway, I want to continue this conversation. Tom McClintock, I'll get you in here. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back on California and when we get to the point where the U.S. taxpayer is sending $26 billion to Sacramento. We'll be back with our gentleman from California right after this.